The decision did not stay in the meeting. That is the part people miss. The room moved on, the calendar moved on, the recap went out. Everyone had the feeling that something had been settled, but the decision did not stay there. It followed people back to their teams. It showed up in the language they used with customers. It showed up in the Slack thread that should have been simple. It showed up in the way the VP softened the recommendation. It showed up in the way the COO had to explain the same thing 3 different ways to 3 different people. It showed up when the founder got pulled back in to clarify something they thought the team had already handled. That is what one unclosed decision does. It does not wait politely in the background. It starts creating work. Not always loud work, not always urgent work, often just small, responsible-looking work. 1 follow-up, 1 clarification, 1 extra meeting, 1 cautious email, 1 let's just check before we commit, 1 I think this is what we decided, but let me confirm. And each one seems harmless by itself, but together they become the cost of the decision that did not close. Welcome back to the Hidden Drag Brief. My name is Wojnowski. Today, I want to talk about why one unclosed decision does not wait. And I want to be careful with this one because I'm not talking about the obvious kind of indecision. I'm not talking about the meeting where everyone knows the decision is still open. I am not talking about the issue that is clearly blocked, clearly escalated, clearly unresolved. Those are easier to see. I'm talking about the decision that looks mostly settled, the kind where the room moved on, the kind where nobody raised a hard objection, the kind where the notes sounded clean enough, the kind where people left with enough confidence to keep working, but not enough clarity to stop checking. And that is the dangerous kind, because when a decision is obviously open, the team can name it. They can say, we have not yet decided. They can put it back on the agenda. They can assign someone to bring a recommendation, and they can escalate it properly. But when a decision feels almost closed, it gets harder to see. People think it is done, or they think other people think it is done, or they think it's safer not to ask. So the decision doesn't get closed. It gets carried. And that is the distinction. Closed decisions move through the organization cleanly. Carried decisions move through people. They depend on memory. They depend on interpretation. They depend on the operator knowing what the founder probably meant. They depend on the team remembering the tone of the conversation. They depend on someone quietly translating the gap between what was discussed and what was actually decided. And that is where the cost begins. Let me make this practical. Imagine a leadership team discussing whether to push into a new customer segment. The opportunity looks real, sales is excited, product is cautious, finance is asking about margin, customer success is worried about support load. The founder likes the strategic direction but doesn't want the core business distracted. The room has a really good conversation. People are thoughtful, nobody is careless. By the end, the room seems to agree. Yes, let's pursue it, but carefully. And that sounds reasonable. It may even be the right direction. But what did the team actually decide? Did they decide to build for that segment now? Did they decide to test demand with existing capability? Did they decide sales can pursue those deals, but product will not customize? Did they decide customer success gets extra support capacity? Did they decide the founder has to approve the first few exceptions? Did they decide which current work slows down to make room for this? If those questions did not close, the decision doesn't wait. It starts moving through the system as ambiguity. Sales hears, we can sell into this segment. Product hears, we're only exploring. Customer success hears, we may be inheriting more complexity. Finance hears, we still have margin risk. The founder hears, we're being careful. And the COO hears all of it. Now, the follow-ups begin. Sales asks whether they can include the segment in the next campaign. Product asks whether they should account for it in the roadmap. Customer success asks what promises are safe. Finance asks whether this changes the forecast. The founder asks whether the team is moving too fast. And suddenly the original decision has multiplied. Not because people are being difficult, because the decision didn't close clearly enough to travel. That phrase matters. A decision has to travel. It has to survive beyond the room where it was made. It has to be understood by people who were not in the meeting. It has to guide someone making a smaller call 2 weeks later. It has to tell a manager what to say no to. It has to tell finance what assumption to use. It has to tell the operator what not to relitigate. If a decision can't do that, then it's not really operating as a decision. It's operating as a conversation people remember differently. And that is expensive. The first cost is meetings. One more open decision creates another meeting because people need a place to clarify what the first meeting did not close. Sometimes it's called a follow-up. Sometimes it's called an alignment sync. Sometimes it's called a quick check-in. Sometimes it's not even on the calendar. It's a sidebar conversation or a Slack thread or a call after the call. But the work is the same. The organization is trying to locate the decision. That is why I do not automatically see follow-up as follow-through. Sometimes follow-up is healthy. People do need to coordinate. People need to execute. People need to make sure next steps are clear. But sometimes the follow-up exists because the decision did not close in the room. The meeting ended, but the decision still needed a home, so the calendar gives it one. The second cost is hesitation. When people are not sure what was actually decided, they become careful. They soften their language. They delay commitments. They add caveats. They ask for another read before they move. Again, from the outside, that can look like a confidence issue. Why is the team hesitating? Why are they not owning the work? Why do they keep checking? But often, the hesitation is rational. If people have learned that decisions are fragile, they will move carefully. If they're not sure what the room accepted, they will avoid overcommitting. If they don't know whether the founder will reopen the call, they will check first. If the trade-off was not named, they will avoid acting as if it was. That hesitation is not always a lack of courage. Sometimes it's the system teaching people to protect themselves from decisions that did not fully land. The third cost is uncertainty. This is the cost that does not always show up in a dashboard. People spend mental energy carrying multiple versions of the same decision. Are we doing this now or later? Is this a priority or just an idea the founder liked? Did we commit to the segment or only agree to explore it? Is the budget approved or are we still waiting? Can we say no to the customer request or will that get reopened? That kind of uncertainty creates friction in small places. A message takes longer to write. A manager pauses before giving direction. The team waits before committing to a timeline. A recommendation gets watered down. A customer conversation becomes less direct. None of that looks dramatic, but it all slows the work. And because it is spread across many people, it is very easy to miss. The fourth cost is operator rescue. So this is where the COO or the chief of staff or the president, GM, or other senior operator often gets pulled in. Not because the operator created the ambiguity, but because someone has to make it usable. The operator becomes the person who says, here's how we should interpret that. Let me check with the founder. Let's not reopen the whole thing, but here's the direction for now. I think the real trade-off is this. I'll clarify it in the recap. Again, there is skill in all of that. Good operators do this very well. But when the same operator keeps rescuing the same kind of unclosed decision, the system is learning the wrong lesson. It is learning that clarity does not have to be created in the room. It can be supplied afterward by a capable person. That is not decision maturity. That is dependency with a helpful face. And over time, the operator carries the cost that the decision system refused to hold. This is why one unclosed decision does not wait. It recruits work, it recruits meetings, it recruits hesitation, it recruits uncertainty, it recruits operator rescue. and often it recruits the founder back into a decision they thought had already moved. And that founder piece matters, because founders often feel the cost of unclosed decisions as repeated pullback. They think they delegated, they think the room agreed, they think the team has enough to move, and then the decision returns. Not always as a big escalation, sometimes as a small question. Are you comfortable with this? Do you want to see it before we send it? Should we still move forward if this other thing slips? Did you mean that we should pause the current work or just be careful? Those questions can be very frustrating, but they're also very useful. They tell you the decision did not travel cleanly. They tell you people may have left the room with enough direction to start, but not enough authority to continue. They tell you the founder may still be part of the decision path, whether anyone said that out loud or not. And if that keeps happening, it is not just a communication issue. It's a closure issue. Now, I want to separate this from perfection. A closed decision does not mean every detail is known. It does not mean nobody will ever learn something new. It does not mean the decision can never be revisited. That would all be very unrealistic. Businesses change, markets move, customers surprise you, new information matters. A closed decision simply means people know what call was made, who owns it, what trade-off was adopted, and what would justify reopening it. And that's the last part that's really important. A reopening rule is not bureaucracy, it's protection. It protects the decision from casual reopening, and it protects the team from pretending the decision can never change. So, for example, we're pursuing this segment for the next 60 days using existing product capability. Product will not customize unless the opportunity meets this threshold. Sales owns the first test. Finance will review margin after 5 qualified opportunities. We reopen the decision if support load exceeds this line or if conversion stays below this level. So there's nothing fancy in that, but it travels. A sales manager can use it. Product can use it. Finance can use it. The COO can point back to it. The founder doesn't have to reinterpret it every week. That is what closure does. It reduces unnecessary dependency on memory and personality. It gives the system something to carry. Without that, the decision keeps borrowing capacity from people. A little bit from the founder, a little bit from the COO, a little bit from finance, a little bit from product, a little bit from every manager who has to explain the ambiguity to someone else. And that is how the cost compounds. Not in one big dramatic moment, in many small withdrawals from attention, trust, speed, and judgment. And because each withdrawal is small, leaders often don't connect them back to the original decision. They see the calendar filling up, they see people hesitating, they see the operators stretched, they see the founder pulled back into details, they see the same priority moving slower than expected, but they treat those as separate issues, and they're often connected. One decision did not close, and now the organization is paying for it in pieces. That is the practical lens that I'd encourage you to use this week. When something keeps coming back, don't only ask why the team has not executed. Ask what open decision is still feeding the recurrence. When a meeting gets added, ask whether the meeting is actually for coordination or whether it's trying to find a decision that never landed. When the operator has to clarify again, ask what the system should have made clear without them. When the founder gets pulled back in, ask whether they were ever fully out of the decision path. When people hesitate, ask whether hesitation is a character issue or a rational response to unclear closure. This is not about blaming anyone. Most of these patterns happen in good teams. The founder is trying to give direction. The operator is trying to help. The team is trying to move responsibly. But good intent does not close decisions. Closure closes decisions. And closure usually needs 5 things: a named owner, a clear call, a named trade-off, a place where the decision lives, and a rule for what would reopen it. Very simple. If those are missing, the decision may still be moving through the company, even if the meeting ended weeks ago. So the next time you feel the same issue coming back, try not to treat it as just another update. Ask where it started. Ask what decision it is still carrying. Ask what would have allowed the decision to travel without 3 extra meetings, 4 sidebars, and a COO clarification afterward. Because one unclosed decision does not wait. It moves. It multiplies. It creates work for people who were never supposed to carry it. And the longer it stays unnamed, the more normal the cost starts to feel. That is hidden drag. If this is ringing true, I would not start by trying to diagnose your whole company. Start with just one decision that keeps showing up again. One priority, one recurring conversation, one place where the same people keep getting pulled back in. And ask, what was supposed to be decided here? Who owns it now? What trade-off was accepted? Where does the decision live? What would justify reopening it? If those answers are hard to find, then the issue is probably not execution. It may be that the decision never fully closed. This is exactly the kind of pattern the hidden drag diagnostic is built to surface. It takes about 7 to 10 minutes and helps identify whether the drag under one stuck priority is decision drag, alignment drag, structural drag, human drag, or a combination of those. The link is in the description. Take the diagnostic, use it on one real priority, and then see what shows up. Because once you can see the open decision underneath the work, you can stop creating every follow-up as a separate problem, and you can close the thing that keeps creating them. And if coming out of that diagnosis you find that there's still an issue and that you'd like to work with me to help sort it out, the place you start is still the same. Start with that hidden drag diagnostic. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Hidden Drag Brief. My name is Wojnowski, and I'll see you next time.